The Lazy Sicilian begins with the regular open Sicilian move order, starting with e4, c5, knight f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and bishop c5 is our move here. The main advantage of this opening is that it avoids all of the well-known open Sicilian variations that need to be memorized in huge depth. Essentially, with very little preparation, you will surprise your opponents with some unconventional plans in the Sicilian, which most people have usually never seen before and get really confused by. The origin of this opening is rather unclear, but the earliest I could trace it to was a correspondence match between two Dutch cities back in 1847. These games are not exactly theoretically significant to us nowadays, but this was one of the earliest in which we could see this variation appear. Next, it appeared in the Morphy against Paulsen match in 1857. And those are definitely significant names, but unfortunately it did not go too well for Paulsen, and he scored half a point out of 4 games that he played it in, and he later abandoned this variation for a very long time. Luckily, 120 years later, a strong English player, Michael Bassman, brought this variation back to life, and let us see one of his miniatures, which brought the interest back to this variation. So bishop c5, this is how we begin the Lazy Sicilian. After the most popular reply of knight b3, black plays bishop b7. So you keep this bishop on the g1 a7 diagonal, where it will be eyeing the f2 pawn. The opponent continued with regular development, and so did Michael Bassman. He played knight e7, bishop g5, castles, bishop e2. In this seemingly normal position, black suddenly takes over the initiative, which is very surprising to the opponent because he has seemingly done nothing wrong and did not suspect anything while taking the pawn on f5. After which black had a very nice tactical blow prepared. Bishop takes on f2. Now white is forced to take on f2, and rook f5 creates a nice double attack on both the king and the bishop, and white is left without castling and also without a pawn. Very bad position to get as white out of the opening. So this was an introductory game in which you could see a bit of what the Lazy Sicilian can look like. Next, this system was popularized by the Croatian international master Srđan Saleh, who played this variation in the 1990s with incredible success. He has beaten a number of strong grandmasters in it, including the famous Peter Leko. So he really made a huge contribution to the development and the popularity of this line, and we will of course have some of his games in the model games section. As far as I know, there is actually no official name to this variation, and in my opinion, the Lazy Sicilian is a name that fits it perfectly, and it's what I like to call it. You could categorize it under the Sicilian Paulsen umbrella. Some people also call it the Bassman-Saleh variation to give credit to the two first most devoted players of this system. And actually, the people who named it the Bassman-Saleh variation, I think they also deserve a special note. I would like to give credit to Valery Bronznik and Steve Giddens for essentially sparking my interest in this variation with their book, The Lazy Man's Sicilian, which this book explores this rare variation in huge depth. This book inspired me to start playing and researching this variation, so I would highly recommend the book to anyone who's interested in either the history of this variation or in some further details to definitely take a look at their book. It is not very long, very easy to read, and offers some great explanations. Personally, I've been playing this variation for about a year and a half, and since I have started playing it in serious tournaments, I have honestly not lost a single game in it. To be fair, I was quite lucky sometimes, and the stats are only that good because I play it rather selectively, so I choose which opponent would be most suited to play it against. I would say it works best as a surprise weapon rather than your main repertoire. So I just want to put that out there and to let you know that you may have a tougher time playing it once people actually start preparing against it. But if you are not yet a competitive player and your games do not go into the database every time you play, you have absolutely nothing to worry about, and this is a great surprise weapon with a lot of interesting ideas and tactical opportunities, which you can play regardless of your level. Let's get right into it.